There's a good chance someone in your life, maybe a doctor, maybe a well-meaning friend, has told you at some point to drink more water. 8 glasses a day. Stay hydrated. It is good for your heart, your kidneys, your joints, your skin. You took that advice seriously, and you followed it. And now, here you are, waking up 2, 3, sometimes 4 times every single night just to use the bathroom. Exhausted, confused, wondering what is happening to your body and why something as harmless as drinking water has begun destroying your sleep. Here is the truth that most people are never given. The problem is not the water. The problem is what your body is doing with that water and why, especially after the age of 60, the same habits that served you perfectly well decades ago are now quietly working against you in ways you cannot see. My name is Dr. Caldwell, and what I'm going to share with you today are 4 specific biological errors that most people are making without realizing it, errors that are directly responsible for those nighttime bathroom trips. One of them has nothing to do with how much you drink or even when you drink it. It goes deeper than that. And by the time we get through all 4 of them, you're going to understand your own body in a way that most general practitioners simply do not take the time to explain during a standard appointment. I want to be straightforward with you before we begin. The first mistake on this list is one that is almost entirely within your control, and when you hear it, there's a real chance it is going to frustrate you a little, because it has been hiding in plain sight the whole time. Let's begin. Most people, when they start experiencing frequent nighttime urination, immediately assume the problem is volume. They're drinking too much, so they cut back. They stop having tea in the evening. They limit water after dinner, and sometimes that helps a little. But the reason it does not solve the problem completely is that they're only looking at one variable while ignoring several others that are just as powerful, if not more so. The first thing almost nobody considers is this. Not all beverages behave the same way inside your body. Some drinks, even in very small amounts consumed hours before bed, will actively interfere with your body's natural nighttime shutdown sequence. Your body produces a hormone in the evening hours called antidiuretic hormone, sometimes called ADH. This hormone functions essentially as a biological off switch for your kidneys. It tells them to slow down, to produce less urine, to concentrate what they do make, and to give your bladder a rest while you sleep. This hormone is not optional. It is part of your body's fundamental nighttime repair cycle. And it has 2 very specific enemies that most people consume without a second thought. The first enemy is caffeine. Most people know caffeine is a stimulant. What they do not realize is that caffeine is also a diuretic, and more critically, it directly suppresses that ADH hormone we just discussed. The mechanism is well established in pharmacological research. Caffeine interferes with specific receptors in the brain, suppresses ADH secretion, and simultaneously increases the rate at which your kidneys filter fluid. So that cup of coffee at 4 in the afternoon, or that herbal tea blend that secretly contains caffeine, or even the square of dark chocolate you had after dinner, all of it is working against your body's attempt to wind down. The caffeine does not leave your system as quickly as most people assume, and by the time you lie down to sleep, your kidneys are still running at a pace they should not be. The second enemy is alcohol. This one is harder for people to hear, but it would be a disservice not to address it directly. Even a single glass of wine consumed with dinner has been shown to measurably suppress ADH secretion within minutes of entering the bloodstream. Research published in peer-reviewed renal physiology literature confirms that alcohol directly inhibits the release of this hormone from the brain's pituitary gland, with effects that begin almost immediately. What happens next is predictable. You fall asleep feeling perfectly comfortable. You drift off easily, maybe even faster than usual. And then, approximately 90 minutes later, something wakes you up. Your bladder is suddenly, insistently full. You get up, you take care of it, you go back to bed. And the cycle repeats. This is not coincidence. It is biochemistry. The practical response here is straightforward. In the 2 hours before bed, limit yourself to no more than 4 to 6 ounces of plain warm water or a verified caffeine-free herbal tea. Chamomile works. Peppermint works. Read your labels carefully, because many herbal blends contain green tea or other hidden sources of caffeine that most people overlook entirely. But here is why this is only the fourth most important factor on this list. Even if you eliminate caffeine and alcohol completely from your evening routine, there are three deeper biological forces still working against you. Forces that go further into your body's internal architecture than beverage choice alone. Your kidneys are not the same organ at 8 in the morning as they are at 8 in the evening. That is not a metaphor. That is a physiological fact. Your kidneys operate on a circadian rhythm, a built-in biological clock that fundamentally alters how they process fluid depending on the time of day. In the morning hours and through the early afternoon, your kidneys are primed. Cortisol levels are elevated, renal blood flow is optimized, and your body is designed for high-volume fluid processing. When you drink water during these hours, your kidneys handle it efficiently, and urine is produced during the day when bathroom trips are nothing more than a mild inconvenience. But as the afternoon gives way to evening, everything shifts. Cortisol drops. The antidiuretic hormone begins rising. Renal blood flow slows. Your kidneys are biologically downshifting, beginning the transition into rest mode. And here is where millions of people make a critical mistake without knowing it. Think about how most adults over 60 actually live their days. Morning is rushed. Coffee might be the only fluid consumed before noon. Lunch is busy, maybe a glass of water. By mid-afternoon, the dry mouth sets in, the mild fatigue arrives, and so they start drinking more. Then comes dinner with a glass of water. Then something warm before bed. Then maybe another glass because someone once told them that staying hydrated overnight is important. What that pattern actually represents is a massive delivery of fluid to the kidneys precisely when the kidneys are trying to shut down. The body is essentially being handed a pile of work right at the end of a shift. The International Continence Society, which is the leading global research body in urology, has identified front-loaded hydration and evening fluid restriction as the single most effective first-line behavioral intervention for nighttime urination in older adults. Not medication, not surgery, not supplements. Timing. Their clinical guidelines are explicit. When you drink matters as much as how much you drink. A patient of mine, a retired schoolteacher from the Midwest named Roberta, 73 years old, came to me convinced something was seriously wrong with her bladder. She was waking up 3 times a night, sometimes 4. She exercised regularly, ate well, stayed on top of her medications. But her hydration pattern was what I call back-heavy. Almost nothing in the morning, moderate amounts at lunch, and then the majority of her daily fluid intake from 5 in the evening onward, simply because that was when she finally sat down and relaxed. We did not change how much water she drank. We kept her daily total exactly the same, roughly 2 liters. What we changed was when she drank it. We moved 65% of her fluid intake to the morning and early afternoon, and we set a fluid cutoff at 7:30 in the evening. Within 4 weeks, she went from 3 and 4 nighttime bathroom trips down to 1, and some nights not at all. She told me afterward that in over 30 years of caring for her own health, nobody had ever explained this to her. For those of you over 65, this becomes even more important. Research published in clinical nephrology literature has confirmed that the circadian rhythm of kidney function weakens with age. The normal suppression of nighttime urine production that younger people experience becomes less robust as the body ages. Your built-in protection against nighttime trips is genuinely less effective at 70 than it was at 45. That makes the timing of your hydration a compensating strategy, not a preference. It is one of the most powerful tools available to you, and it costs nothing. Your practical step here is this. Keep a large glass of water by your bed, but drink it in the morning, not at night. Before coffee, before anything else, drink it. Then sip consistently through the morning hours. Give yourself a 2 o'clock checkpoint in the afternoon, and ask yourself honestly whether you have had the majority of your water for the day. If not, now is the time. After 5 in the evening, you are tapering down, not loading up. But even perfect hydration timing may not fully solve the problem for some people. There is something else happening underneath all of this, something invisible that almost never gets discussed in mainstream health content. As we age, the walls of our smaller blood vessels, the capillaries, naturally become more permeable, more porous, in plain terms. And this change has a specific consequence that almost nobody connects to nighttime urination. During the day, when you're upright and moving around, fluid is quietly and steadily leaking out of those small blood vessels into the surrounding soft tissue, particularly in your legs and lower body. While you're on your feet and active, your circulatory system manages this. Movement helps pump it back. Gravity helps. Your body handles it. But the moment you lie down at night, the equation changes. That fluid, which has been pooling all day in your legs and feet and lower abdomen, suddenly has a clear return path into your bloodstream. Gravity no longer holds it there. Your circulation picks it up, delivers it to your kidneys, and your kidneys do exactly what they are supposed to do. They filter it and send it to your bladder. The result is that you fall asleep feeling completely fine, and then somewhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours later, you wake up with an urgent, pressing need to use the bathroom. Your bladder did not fill gradually over the course of the night. It was flooded suddenly by fluid that had been waiting in your tissue all day. Researchers refer to this as nocturnal polyuria driven by positional fluid redistribution, and clinical literature identifies it as the single most common driver of nighttime urination in older adults, accounting for the majority of cases in people over 65. Not a bladder disease, not a prostate condition, a vascular and fluid redistribution problem. Two specific habits dramatically worsen this effect. The first is high sodium intake. Sodium causes your tissues to hold on to more fluid than they otherwise would. Most people consume far more sodium than they realize, not from the salt shaker, but from bread, canned soups, deli meats, sauces, and restaurant meals. All of that sodium means more fluid trapped in tissue during the day and more fluid flooding the bladder when you lie down. A study conducted by researchers at a major Japanese university enrolled over 300 adults with both high salt intake and documented nighttime urination. Participants who reduced their daily salt intake from roughly 10.5 grams down to 8 grams saw their nightly bathroom trips drop from an average of 2.3 down to 1.4. Nearly a 40% reduction from one dietary adjustment alone. The second factor is afternoon fluid loading combined with inactivity. The more fluid you take in during the late afternoon and evening, and the less movement you get, the more raw material is available for that tissue-level pooling. When you combine that with age-related vascular changes and elevated sodium, you create a perfect storm that no amount of nighttime bathroom avoidance can fully overcome. Here is what to do. Spend 1 week becoming a label reader. Check the sodium content in your bread, your sauces, your canned products. Aim to bring your daily sodium below 2,300 milligrams. If you can reach 1,800, even better. And try what I call the afternoon drain. Sometime between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, find a couch or your bed, place a pillow under your calves, and elevate your legs above the level of your heart for 20 to 30 minutes. This simple position allows your circulatory system to pull that pooled fluid back into your bloodstream while you're still awake, so your kidneys and bladder can process it during waking hours instead of during the night. A patient of mine, a retired builder named Gerald, 78 years old, had been on medication for nighttime urination for over a year with only modest results. When I did a 24-hour urine collection, his overnight urine output was 71% of his total daily volume. For context, the normal range is closer to 30 to 35%. His body was holding fluid all day and releasing it entirely at night. We addressed his sodium, which had been running well above 4,000 milligrams daily from canned soups and frequent restaurant meals. We added the afternoon leg elevation protocol and adjusted his fluid timing. Within 8 weeks, his overnight urine output had dropped to 48% of his daily total. His nighttime bathroom trips fell from 4 down to 1 or 2. The change in his quality of life was something he described as giving him his life back. But as significant as that piece of the puzzle is, there is one more layer underneath all of it. And this is the one that almost no one has ever considered. When you drink water, does your body actually absorb it? Most people assume the answer is obviously yes. And in a basic sense, it is. But there is a more precise version of this story that has enormous implications specifically for nighttime urination. Your body does not simply want water. It wants water in a particular biochemical context. Specifically, water paired with electrolytes, most critically potassium and magnesium, which are essential for your cells to actually draw in and retain fluid at the cellular level. When you drink large quantities of plain water without adequate electrolyte support, your kidneys register a dilution of the blood's electrolyte balance and respond by increasing urine output to restore that balance. This process, called osmotic diuresis, means that you could drink a full liter of plain water and have a significant portion of it end up in your bladder within 60 to 90 minutes. Not because your bladder is overactive, but because your cells could not absorb the fluid and your kidneys had to excrete it. Research confirms that older adults are at significantly higher risk of magnesium deficiency due to reduced intestinal absorption and drug interactions that deplete the mineral over time. This matters for bladder health specifically because magnesium plays a direct role in regulating the muscle that controls bladder contractions. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial examining magnesium supplementation in adults with bladder symptoms found that 40% of participants taking magnesium reported meaningful improvements in urgency, nighttime urination, and incontinence, compared to just under 17% in the placebo group. That is a clinically meaningful difference driven by correcting a single nutrient deficiency. What does this mean practically? Include potassium-rich foods consistently in your diet. Bananas, sweet potatoes, avocado, and dark leafy greens all support your body's ability to absorb and retain water at the cellular level. Look honestly at your magnesium intake, because most adults over 60 fall below the recommended daily amount. Dietary sources include pumpkin seeds, almonds, whole grains, and dark greens. Talk with your physician about whether a magnesium glycinate supplement is appropriate for you. This is the form most readily absorbed by the body and least likely to cause digestive discomfort. Consider switching some of your plain water intake to mineral-rich water or adding a small amount of a low-sodium, low-sugar electrolyte powder to your morning hydration. And rather than drinking large glasses of water all at once, which spikes the dilution ratio and triggers that excretion response, sip consistently and frequently throughout the morning. Smaller amounts spread over time give your cells the opportunity to actually absorb what you're giving them. A patient of mine, 81 years old, a former secondary school teacher named Vivian, had done everything right. Her fluid cutoff was at 7 in the evening. She had shifted her hydration to mornings and early afternoons. She had reduced her sodium and added afternoon leg elevation. She went from 5 nighttime bathroom trips down to 2, which was significant improvement, but she was still frustrated because 2 was still interrupting her sleep. When I ran a comprehensive metabolic panel, her serum magnesium was sitting at the very bottom of the normal range. Technically acceptable, but functionally inadequate for optimal cellular hydration. We introduced dietary magnesium sources and a low-dose supplement under medical supervision. Within 6 weeks, Vivian went from 2 nighttime trips to 0 or 1 on most nights. At 81 years old, she told me she had not slept that soundly since she was in her 40s. That is what becomes possible when all 4 layers are addressed together. To pull this all together, the 4th factor is beverage chemistry in the evening hours, with caffeine and alcohol suppressing your body's natural nighttime hormone and keeping your kidneys in active production mode when they should be resting. The 3rd factor is the timing of your daily hydration, with most people delivering the bulk of their fluid intake right into the window when their kidneys are already winding down for the night, instead of front-loading it into the morning when the body is biologically designed to process it most efficiently. The 2nd factor is the invisible redistribution of fluid that pools in your tissue during the day and floods your bladder the moment you lie down, made worse by high sodium and afternoon inactivity. And the 1st factor, the deepest one, is the quality of your cellular hydration itself, and whether your body actually has the electrolyte support it needs to absorb and retain the fluid you're giving it, rather than simply excreting it. These 4 mechanisms compound each other. They interact, and addressing them together produces the kind of improvement that no single medication or single behavioral change can typically match on its own. You do not need surgery for this. You do not need expensive interventions. What you need is accurate, detailed information about how your body actually works at this stage of life and the willingness to apply it consistently. That information, all of it, is now in your hands.